We're recording. Okay. Actual recording. My screen says actual recording will be higher quality.
That's what mine says too.
Good. Excellent.
I'd be worried if it said actual recording will be lower quality. But here we are.
It's going to be great. I think
it's going to be great. Hi.
So,
how are you?
Hi. I'm good.
Hi.
I'm good. You know, I think today's setup was a lot faster than our last test run.
Yes.
Even though it was still over an hour, the last one was 3 hours.
3 hours. Wow, we've
progress.
improved tremendously by 200%.
We started with a race, and then once I was finished and realized, do I get a prize? I think I won the race.
You won the race, but I got the prize. I got breakfast wrap.
You did.
Sorry, so I'll have to buy breakfast wraps next time.
For anyone watching this video, he got a breakfast wrap because I got an extra one for free.
Very good. I recommend them.
I thought, who would want a free breakfast wrap? Heath Fletcher.
If we mention Starbucks in here, do we get free stuff?
Maybe. I mean, we already got a free wrap this morning.
More free stuff. More free stuff.
Okay.
All right.
So this is kind of like, so we're doing a test recording for Backyards to Boardrooms. But this is kind of like our first kind of official, like we're set up in our studios. We have Riverside running. We have everything going the way that we want to. First official run before our first official interview, which is coming up later this week.
Yes, our very first. It's exciting.
So let's talk today about how we got into it. Why are we doing this? What happened?
Well, you started podcasting first. You guys were doing you and Pete were doing your my podcast my mortgage life.
Yes, but before that, I think I started podcasting.
Oh yeah, you were doing other stuff with JCI. Yeah.
I started 5 years ago. I had an opportunity to host to launch a podcast for our national organization, JCI Canada. Junior Chamber International really quickly is a leadership development organization. Lots of cool opportunities to learn new things. And I got this opportunity to podcast for the national organization. So I started from the ground up. I literally was like, I don't even know how to record, how to edit recording, and then how does that recording get onto the internet and flow through?
There are many steps.
To a podcast. How does it? And then it ends up on everybody. Podcast on people's cell phones. They can just click on it and listen to it, and it just it took me about 6 months to get through the process. But that was 5 years ago. So I've done a lot of podcasting. I did 40 podcasts for the JCI Canada podcast. The Mortgage Life podcast, we're on episode 50, I think. Episode 50. And
that's when you were El Presidente, wasn't it? Of the chamber?
JCI Canada. So I was national president. So 2020, I did the podcast. I was national president in 2022. So by then, the host, I had passed the reins on to new podcast hosts. There's been a couple since I've done it. We had Dan Prue in there for a little while, who's the Vernon Chamber manager. He did a couple episodes. We had Jen Senkar. She's in Kelowna. She's a past national president of JCI Canada too. Francesca Amante. And now it's Danielle Andrews doing the podcast. So it's still going, which is cool.
That is cool. Yeah. Look where you started.
Yeah.
And you started it without knowing anything. But
nothing.
I mean, now you were listing off all the things you got to do, and it was there's a lot to do. You don't just start a podcast by well, I guess you can, use your phone,
can.
but
But you kind of fumble through it, and then you realize as you get going that there's so many layers, so many things to think about.
And then things have changed so much in the podcast industry.
Yeah.
The tools and things that are available to us now are incredible.
When I started in 2020, it was before I started developing it in 2019. So before COVID, before this online virtual space really exploded. There was some options, but I didn't understand or kind of even know. And then when I started out in 2020, before everything shut down, at that point, because JCI is an international, it's a worldwide organization, I was trying to figure out how I could conduct an interview sitting at home here in Canada. I wanted to interview our world president who was in Zimbabwe. How do I do that kind of interview? And then Zoom exploded and everything else, and so everything became a whole lot easier and a whole lot more accessible. But what's really cool about podcasting is that it does allow us to connect around the world. It even allows us to connect through a window.
Yeah.
Right?
And
You're right there.
Like
right
literally
there
through a window. Yeah, this setup's pretty cool. I like it. It's working out really well. And, this has come a long way too. Like, I mean, we started we tried to launch podcasting just before COVID as well. We built a sound room. We acquired the equipment. We had partnered with some people that had lots of experience doing the recordings anyways. And we started doing some for clients. So it was on its way. And then we didn't have our own show. We were really just providing those facilities and that service to clients of ours. And I had been on a few podcasts. I've been invited to be a guest on a few of them, and I like talking, so that's easy. And then I was starting to think, you know what, Sproing needs to have its own podcast. So I was kind of put together something, and then COVID hit and just sort of wiped. Well, we all know what happened with that when that happened, but podcasts exploded during COVID because everyone was at home and had nothing better to do, podcasting and video casting and all that stuff.
Audio
but
equipment.
I hadn't put mine together yet. So when we surfaced out of COVID, pre-COVID, we were very busy working with nonprofits, helping them with their events and their promoting their activities for fundraising. And then, of course, all those events sort of disappeared and took a few years before they resurfaced. So during that time, instead of helping nonprofits that way, I decided to launch Many Brains, One Heart podcast, which was a podcast that interviewed nonprofits in our local region to give them a platform to talk about their organization, their initiatives, what they're doing in our community, and getting to know some of the people in that industry in Vernon.
Yeah.
And so I managed to put together...
I love the name of it, by the way. Many Brains, One
thanks.
Heart. It's so cool. It's exactly what it says everything it needs to about the content of that podcast.
Yeah, it's perfect. It was kind of been the motto of Sproing for quite a few years as our team. Our team is like Many Brains, One Heart. We all work together. So that's kind of where it evolved from. And then once I did a few, I really loved it. And then, of course, we hit our own personal roadblock when Carolyn got diagnosed and had to go in for a stem cell transplant. So that's a year this month she was diagnosed.
Wow.
And then we disappeared to Vancouver for 4 months. But I recorded a few of them before we left and got it started, got it on the air. So there's 4 out there. I got a 5th one. And I did record one remotely from Vancouver, using Riverside, which is what we're using now, just to test that out to see if that was possible. And it worked like a charm, and it was great because that was how we knew how to use it here, because it does so much of the post legwork to get things started.
But let's back up a second, though, because then here I am over here doing my podcast journey. I'm learning, I'm fumbling along and trying to pretend like I know what I'm doing. And here's Heath over here doing the same thing separately. Yeah. So then it was like January this year, like right in that hibernation month, right? Yeah. January, February, you just want to hide from the cold. Yeah. You launched your first episode, I think it was in January. Yeah. December, January. And I don't know, it popped up on my Apple Podcasts. Like,
there it was.
Heath has a podcast, and I was like, what? Hold on a second. So I actually picked up the phone. I called Heath, and I was like, you need a co-host.
Well, you listened to it first and you liked it. So that's the first step.
I did listen to it.
You had to like it. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to sign up to be a co-host. So I'm glad you liked it because
I liked the concept of it. But like in amongst this, getting ready to go to Vancouver for Carolyn's stem cell transplant, it was like minus 20. And you were like, let's meet in the park.
Oh, yeah, right. We had to go for a walk.
We had to go outside so that we didn't like mix germs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we went for, I think it was like an hour or two, like freezing by the end of it. But through that walk is when we came up with Backyards to Boardrooms.
Yeah. And because it was such a great idea and such, it was kind of like your world and my world sort of coming together because you'd done so much work on an international scale. It didn't surprise me one bit that you were like, I'm going to do something that's connected to the United Nations. And then I'm like, United Nations? What? I don't know anything about the United Nations.
Yeah.
Or the SDGs. I didn't even know what the acronym meant.
People in Vernon, in our community, don't really know about it.
They don't. And that whole concept of sustainability at a global scale is something that people don't think it relates to them because who am I? In the grand scale of the world, how is anything I'm doing here going to impact the United Nations or any other country in the world? And then you were like, well, that's exactly it. That's exactly the problem is that there are people doing things here at the local level, but if you don't do it at the local level, it doesn't actually reach a global scale.
Yeah.
Everybody has to do their part.
Do their part. And that was where the podcast idea came from.
Right.
Highlighting the work that people are doing on the local level so that it can have that ripple effect.
Right. Well, I guess the first thing that people think about is environment, the environment, climate change. And that's probably the thing that most people try and take part in is how can they help, conserve water, compost, do their own, grow some of their own fruits and vegetables, buy local. Those are sort of the more obvious things. But then there's poverty and homelessness and mental health and education and all that. All of that plays a part. So right down, and every member of the family can contribute from kindergarten to 99.
Yeah. So back to your question, who am I?
I've
asked myself that question a million times. Who am I? Who are you? We're people. We count. Every action, everything that we do has an impact. So
that's exactly right.
What was your reaction when I called you and said, Heath?
Didn't you say, I think I should be a co-host on your show?
Yeah.
And I was like,
I said, I think you need a co-host, and that co-host should be me.
Okay. Sure. Well, let's talk about that. I think that's when we kind of went for our walk. But then you kind of unveiled this bigger story, and I'm like, well, this sounds like its own show, not an episode on my show. I think you need to have your own show. And then that's when the TELUS thing came up.
Yeah,
it was
TELUS Storyhive.
TELUS Storyhive. Let's get them on this. And so, of course, next thing you know, you're like, guess what? We got it.
We got the TELUS Storyhive grant. You know what? We also got support from the city of Vernon.
Yeah,
for this podcast. Right. So we've been able to upgrade our equipment.
Yep.
And really,
can I tell you a little equipment story right now?
Yeah.
So for the first part of this little thing here, I've been looking at. Of course, I have the monitor here, but I'm looking at the camera because, it's very difficult to learn to look at the camera and not look at yourself or the picture of your friend on the screen. And then I'm looking at the little screen on the camera and I'm seeing this little white highlight in my glasses and I'm going, what is that? And this whole time I've been trying to figure out what it is. Can you see it? Because you weren't saying anything and I'm thinking, is that actually on my glasses? But I don't see it on the monitor but I see it and then I realize it's my focus finder on the camera is focusing on my eye. Did yours do that?
Yeah. So the camera has a special,
I know,
some special internal feature, and I'm still
so cool.
I've been
the Sony
podcasting
ZV-1.
Yes, Z, not S.
Yes.
But for
Anyway.
as long as I've been podcasting, I've never done video podcasting.
I know.
So
That adds a whole other level of
learning this.
complexity. Lighting and backgrounds and
Layers like an onion.
cables, cords, power. Yeah. But here we are. It looks really good. I'm really happy.
Here we are. So this week we have our very first official interview. Our actual series, Backyards to Boardrooms, will not be released until spring 2025 because we got to go through the whole production process and do everything to broadcasting standards. That's part of our deal with TELUS STORYHIVE.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're doing these cool little fun conversations as we learn along the way. I think we're also learning how to co-host with each other. I think that's a whole other level.
Yes.
Heath, I'm very bossy. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. I'm a little bit. I'm probably more scattered, so that's probably good. It's like you need kind of.
It's patience too, and this is the thing where I'm like, let's book everything, let's do this and all this, and I'm already organized and I have this itinerary, and you're like, let's get through episode 1.
Because look, our 2 practice sessions took more time than all the time we've spent.
I was ready.
Up.
I don't know what your problem was.
I know you won. I got to go buy another cord today. Remember, I got to go do that. So
yes, it doesn't connect your computer to your camera and do this.
It's not a sprint; it's a marathon.
You know, it's
that was
true.
A Paris Olympics parable
motto, but it's true. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. When I exercise, when I do anything, I'm always like, up here, let's do it the best we can, as fast as we can. Let's just get it done and do really well. That's that A-type personality that just wants to... And you're like, come on, man.
Dude. Let's just see how first one goes.
I don't even know where this cable hooks in.
Literally. I need some power from my phone, from my camera first.
Well, and I can't come just do it for you because you have to be in your bubble and I have to be in my bubble.
Yes, and I have to learn. You thought I was going to be ahead of you in the camera department.
I really did. Just the lighting department.
I mean, I know how they work, but...
I know how to click the button. I know what ISO means.
There is a few moving parts in here. Monitors, computers, guest room.
Oh yeah.
The guest room's in here too.
Yes.
I keep looking down there. I got to keep looking up there. But the
I
camera's
think
not in the
like,
right position.
If you treat the camera like another person in the conversation, like you're making eye contact with the camera. Hi, you're a person, and then you're down here, and then I'm. So it's like.
Well, my camera's supposed to be right kind of by your head over here. So that I'll be sort of looking at my camera, but also seeing you, and then.
But you don't have to stare at it the whole time. Like if I was staring like this, hold on, the whole time.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want that. How's that?
Yep, that's great.